What exactly happened before the first book of the Bible, Genesis? In Hebrew it's called Bereshit. We'll hear incredible things for your personal, spiritual and material success, God willing. Listen to all of these videos. Look at this, it's impressive. The word Bereshit means in the beginning. Could it be translated into Spanish? Now, what happened in the beginning? As you surely know, the beginning of creation in the Bible is the heavens, the earth, everything that is in our world, man, woman, animals, in other words, what is famous and well known. Now, what happened before? What happened before? Let's go to the word first, Bereshit, and I'm going to read you the first verse of the Bible in Hebrew, and then I'll translate it for you, Bereshit. Bara Elohim et hashamayim vet haaretz, it says like this, Bereshit. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Very good now. Bereshit, you have to know that it means in a beginning. You can say Bereshit as in a beginning. Now, in a beginning is when something has already started. It's not at the very instant of the beginning. It's Bereshit, in a beginning, in a beginning. Now, what really happened in the beginning? That's where I want to go with you, and then, God willing, we'll also go to the Bible. Now, in the beginning there was a creation. Now, if you think about it, you'll understand that if there was a creation, there is a creator. Therefore, before the beginning of the creation of the world, the creative force existed. The Creator, God, the Almighty. What happened there? What happened there? That's where we have to bring in the Creator. Was there a Creator before creation? Therefore, when God creates, He creates this universe and all the universes, all the spiritual worlds. The angels, armies of angels, galaxies, this world, we know everything you can think of. Is there a creator before that? Then if there is a creator and a creation, what unites them? A will to create. That is just like when you are going to do something before the action, you had a will, you wanted to do that action. Therefore, for example, you poured yourself a glass of water. Now if you rewind in slow motion, before pouring yourself that glass of water, did it cross your mind that you wanted to drink a glass of water? And surely you told yourself even in your thoughts, I'm thirsty, I want to drink water. You got up from your chair, went to the fridge, grabbed a bottle, poured yourself a glass, and then you drank. That is, before the action there was a will. Therefore, that's how you understand. Before the creation of this world and all the worlds, there was God's will to create this world and all the worlds. And that's where we want to go, to God's will. Why did God create this world? What happened? What for? What did God create this world for? You have to know that God, the Almighty Creator, obviously exists. As we Jews say, there is nothing outside of God. God, the Creator and Almighty, creates everything at every moment, is above everything, and includes everything. There is nothing outside of God, nothing outside of God. God doesn't need anything. In a certain sense, it's not that He needs something. If God needs, He decides to need. This is a fundamental point we'll discuss today. That is to say, God decided to need to create this world. Obviously, God doesn't have a need like we do. Someone needs to drink water because they're thirsty. If God needs something, He decides to need it. It's something very profound, but it needs to be understood. Therefore, the union between the Creator and creation is the will. Let's also give another example. Just as an engineer or an architect presents a blueprint, they have a blueprint. The blueprint is called blueprint in English. That is a plan in which the architect or the engineer organizes and plans according to the needs of the client or the city, the municipality for which he works. And there he lays out, writes diagrams, makes a plan, and later on, maybe years later, that city will be ready, or that bridge, or whatever it may be. That is, before the city or the bridge or that neighborhood that he is going to build, there is a plan beforehand, and before the plan, there is a will. There are client needs. In this case, the engineer or architect. That is, there is a world of needs that combine, those needs move to a physical and concrete level, and then that level moves on. For example, to a construction company with a construction manager, employees, workers, the architect, the engineer, and the whole team. And they build that city, for example. But you have to understand that before that city you see, maybe years after it was planned and conceived, there was a prior thought and intention. So as an example, you have to understand that God has a will for the creation of this world, which comes before Genesis, And that's what I want to talk to you about. That is to say, God created this world with a very specific purpose, which is, as our sages explain, to have a dwelling place in this physical and material world. If it's in Hebrew, it will say batachtonim. One will say it's an apartment, a house, batachtonim. In the lower worlds, in the lowest world that exists, far below the worlds of the angels. And all the worlds that exist on a spiritual level, the lowest world that exists, which is ours, God decided to need, as we said, this also to understand all of this. These are very deep things. But God decided to need a place where he could feel at home. Home, says Batashtonim, is not a palace. It's not a place of honors. He says in Hebrew, it's an apartment, a house, a place of residence. When are you at home? When you feel natural, when you feel that you can be yourself, like us as human beings. Someone who can be in pajamas at home or be on the couch, feel comfortable, talk with their family freely. No, not like when you're in a job interview being watched, being observed. That's not it. You feel natural. And so God needed to create a world, the lowest world, and feel at home. This is impressive. In fact, if we go to the first historical milestone in which God reveals himself to an entire people at Mount Sinai, obviously, after presenting himself to Adam and Eve, obviously an incredible prophecy to individuals in history. Adam, Eve, Noah, as it's said in Hebrew, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the 12 tribes. And that is to say, there is a chain of individual people to whom God speaks in a more revealed way, less revealed, more hinted. With Moses, obviously Moses, an impressive relationship, also the great prophet Moses. That is to say, there are particular moments with particular individuals when there are revelations of prophecy. Impressive. Now, an entire people, the first historic milestone that happened was at Mount Sinai, about 3,336 years ago, in which God reveals himself to about 3 million people, to all the people of Israel who left Egypt after having been slaves for a very long period in Egypt, and opens the waters of the Red Sea. All the people saw it, an impressive prophecy. We arrived at Mount Sinai. We heard, all the people, we heard and also saw the letters in the sky. The first 2 commandments are explained. Our sages say that our souls would leave our bodies, the angels would wake us up, they helped us to wake up, they revived us, our souls entered the body and left again. A tremendous, impressive and noble scene, spiritual, which is why all the people in unison, we heard the first commandment. Then in Hebrew I translate it, Anoji Adonai Eroeja Ayarot Setija. Meresh Mitzrayim Ibeit Abadim. I am God, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Second commandment, Eloi Elohim Ajarim Alpanai. You shall have no idols before me or between us. Could we translate it more freely? That is the prohibition of idolatry? There are no intermediaries. The connection is only between us and God, the Almighty Creator. There are no intermediaries, no son or father, or sister or uncle. There are no intermediaries or monuments. It is also written explicitly in the Torah, in the Bible, the prohibition of making statues of wood, of stone, all kinds of idols and also people, the prohibition of idolatry. Deifying living or dead people, that is explicitly forbidden in the second commandment, and more. There are more verses, but in a very, very specific way. Since that's not our topic, I say in particular, I say this in parentheses, but basically, the people of Israel altogether, we heard the first 2 commandments. As we said, our souls were coming out and going back in an impressive way. Until we asked Moshe to please be the one to go up Mount Sinai and receive the Torah, and then Moshe explained the Torah to us. We all knew with absolute certainty that the Torah was Torah Emet, as it said, right, in Hebrew, a true Torah. That God gave it, because we had witnessed it ourselves beforehand. The divine revelation of God, the Creator, in such an impressive way. Therefore, everything was very clear, and also, with the 10 plagues in Egypt previously revealed, including the parting of the Red Sea. Moses as a prophet was all very clear, so we received the Torah. That is, this is the first historical milestone. And what does it have to do with what we said before Genesis? Mount Sinai is the first time that God, in a humble way, comes down from the higher worlds, metaphorically speaking, that God is in our world, in the higher worlds. There is nothing outside of him. God creates this world and creates a connection with us at every moment, and that's our topic, our video. God willing, we'll continue discussing this. But the first time God comes down metaphorically to this world and speaks to an entire nation, and the whole world found out, the event wasn't limited to Israel. The whole world learned about it, he explains. Our sages say that even at the splitting of the Red Sea when we left Egypt, every person in the world who was holding a glass, for example, that water was split. That is to say, there was a small miracle for individuals when the Red Sea was split. That is to say, it was an impressive revelation for the entire world. Now we continue. What does it mean that God descended? That God descended? God somehow wanted to tell the whole world, not just the people of Israel, we are. Ola Goim, a light for the nations, to teach the Torah to the whole world. It is a responsibility given to us by God to be carried out with great humility and love for all humanity. Now what happened? God comes down in a metaphorical way and speaks to people and tells them, I'm saying it in my own words. I need to ask you a big favor. Which is to make this material world the lowest of the worlds, a truly spiritual world, a truly godly world, as they say in English, in which I, says God, give my words. Can I reside with you and have a connection with you? Think that only someone who can decide not to love someone, that person can decide whether to love them. Therefore, God creates us in such an amazing way. He cares so much about our free will, our ability to choose what we want and what we do, that it's impressive. Because think about it, you have a father and a mother, that is, you came from a mom and a dad. Now God created you in such a way that you don't have the constant awareness, the constant understanding that your father and mother created you, and that you depend on them. At every moment, very soon after maturing a little, that's how a person is. That's how God created us. He feels independent, not having to ask his parents for water every time he wants it. That is, when we are a little more mature. As children, when we really have independence, we slowly start to function on our own. And that's how God created us. That is, just like in the example of the father and mother, God created us that way. Like him. That is, we have to see what it means that God created us. B'Tselem Elohim is written in Hebrew. In Spanish it is said as in his image and likeness. What does that mean? God created us with his qualities. Now, for example, God created in human beings the quality of having rahamim, mercy, of helping others, of loving others, of having patience. All of these are divine qualities, with a capital D from God. God did not create us in his physical image, as God does not have a body. God is everything, above everything, and infinite. God does not have a body like we do, but he did create us on a level of, in Hebrew they are called mido, qualities like those of God, as we said, mercy, patience, helpfulness, love. That is to say, yes, God created us with the possibility to feel like he does. When we are autonomous, without a father and mother, that is to say, God doesn't have a father and mother. God is the creator. There was nothing before him. God is the creator. There was nothing before him. There will be nothing after him. God is the creator, the Almighty. That is to say, God created us with that feeling. When we are autonomy, and also with the connection to God. We don't have it. I mean, we have to want that and try to live all the time connected with God. But God created us in a way that we can feel like we can manage on our own. There's a joke that's very deep about someone who was in a big city, in a big luxury truck, and was looking for parking. He was looking for parking, and at one point he said he had a very important meeting, he had to get there, and he said, God, please, I need you to give me a parking spot. And a second after he said that, a car left and he parked. At that moment he said, "No, no, God, I already fixed it. I don't need your help." Because it's very deep, because this person prayed to God at the moment that clearly God controls everyone, but we must understand that He doesn't allow us to control Him. Just like an automated teller machine where you say something and God gives you money, it would be very negative to have a relationship like that with God, like an automated teller machine that gives money. I ask for this, He gives me this, right? God knows what's best for us. We have to ask God, God, I want to want what you understand is best for me, for those around me, and for the whole world. It's not about saying, I want this. Obviously, you always have to use logic and have an open heart, but ask God that what I want is what you want. What is good for me, for others. You have to be very careful with what you ask for. You have to be very careful. In fact, there's a very large percentage of people who won the lottery and very soon after lost all their fortune. Why? Because what they received wasn't balanced, or because this person didn't have the capacity to handle it. It's like someone puts, there's a small plant with a delicate flower that suddenly grabs something. A big jug of 10 or 20 liters of water and pours it on it. What does that do to that little delicate flower? It destroys it, right? Because the water amount was excessive for the delicate little flower's needs. Therefore, people who win the lottery and suddenly receive millions or very large amounts. The KLE, meaning the vessel or container in Hebrew, was not ready for the person to do good with it. It ruined their life. Therefore, in parentheses, you have to think very carefully before asking God, I want what you want, and what you don't want, I don't want. Like that, constantly. Therefore, let's go back to Mount Sinai. God reveals Himself and God says, I want a connection with you. I need to ask you a big favor to make this material and physical world the most beautiful of all worlds. You can achieve, if you fix this world, to bring this lower world to the highest world above all the worlds, the angels. I want to connect with you. This is very impressive to me, and I'm expressing it in my own words. The first word of the first commandment is Anohi. Anohi. Ayam Elokecha. I am Anohi. It would be like I am God, your God. Anohi. Explain to our wise men that it is an acronym that goes like this. Ana in Aramaic, not in Hebrew, but in Aramaic, Ana, I will translate it as Navshiktavit Vejhavit. I wrote my soul and I gave it. What does God mean? Does it say me? This Torah that I am giving you right now, metaphorically speaking, is as if I gave my soul, I gave my will, my reason, my innermost, most intimate will. I am giving it to you in this Torah. The Torah, the Kadosha Torah, the Holy Torah, is basically God's will for us. And here we go to the beginning of the class. What was before Genesis? We said that's why Torah Kadma, that is Torah Kadma, the Olam. Our sages explained that the Torah, the Bible, existed before the creation of the world. Hashem saw the Torah and created the world. I said it a bit freely, but basically it says God looked at the Torah and created the world. That is God. Just as in the metaphorical example we mentioned, an engineer or architect uses their blueprint to create the city, bridge, neighborhood, or house through the process of building. That is to say, God created the Torah and later, through the laws of the Torah, built the world according to those laws of the Torah. The Torah's character is relevant to all people, Jews and non-Jews alike, and to all of humanity. Jewish men and women follow their own religious laws. And non-Jewish men and women have the 7 great laws of Noah, which can reach incredible spiritual levels. Both Jewish men and women, and Jewish men and non-Jewish women. The goal is for each person to fulfill their own unique mission in this world. We are all like one great body, essential for God's creation, and what we are saying is that God gives, it's as if He gives His soul to humanity and to the people of Israel. We have the merit and responsibility, as stated, with great humility and love for the entire world, to teach the Torah, which is God's will for His creation and for the connection with God. In other words, this is impressive. You have to know that Judaism is not a religion. Religion is really understood as a group of people who in some way, with spiritual or material interests, sometimes in an extreme manner, they connect with God like an automated teller machine, wanting health or wanting sustenance or wanting this or that. And do they talk to God? And they perform certain rituals to get a specific benefit in return. That is in a very extreme way. Obviously there are degrees, but Judaism is the opposite. Judaism is not a religion. You have to know that at Mount Sinai, the Jews who were there, I say the Jews in plural, because all the souls of the people of Israel were there. The 600,000 root souls, we were about 3 million at that time, but there are 600,000 root souls that branch out into many souls throughout all the generations of the people of Israel. We were all there at Mount Sinai, so the people who were there didn't say, I'm religious, I'm Jewish, I'm from the people of Israel. What do we want? A connection with God? We want to love God, we want to help God correct His creation, to make this world the highest world above the angels. Basically, we come here to be for God. You should know that in the world of souls, when a person returns their soul to their Creator, God does for them. But what do we do in this world, here in this material world? We have the merit of being able to do for God. God decides to need you. As we said, God decides to need you to fix His world. The great revelation at Sinai, delivered through the people of Israel, was meant for all of humanity. God reveals His will and tells us, I need to ask you a big favor. I want a connection with you. I want to have a bond of love for you to know me. How can you know me? Through the Torah. The Torah, obviously, the Torah taught by rabbis of Jewish orthodoxy, as we teach the Torah according to Jewish law. And there you can see what God's will is, how to know God, the connection, like someone you love the most. God created you with the ability to choose whether or not to love Him. You can decide to love and know Him. Study the Torah, see what God says, how can we fix this world? The Torah portion of Teruma mentions Azul, Migdash, Yajanti, and Tosha. And they shall build me a sanctuary, and I will dwell among them. Not only in it, but it says among them, which means in each one of us a physical place. Physical people who through our free will can choose life. We can say we love God, fear God in the sense of having a reverential fear of God and loving Him, that will of God. We have the merit with joy and a good heart, successes and blessings.